Hi, I'm Elaine, and this is an ukulele tutorial for That Would Be Enough from Hamilton. If you're looking for a play-along video, you can check out the other video that I made. Now I can break this song down into three sections. First is the bit where Eliza and Hamilton are singing together. Second, there's a bit where Eliza is singing by herself, and third, there's a little riff at the end of the song. First, I'm going to go over the section where Eliza and Hamilton are singing together. You can actually further break down this section into three different subsections. Now, the first subsection is from Look Around to I'm Not Sorry. For my arrangement, I just play single strums here. So what I do is I'll just take my thumb and I'll strum down, and that gives you a softer sound than if you're using your index finger. Now I'm going to go over the chords that you need to know to play this first little bit. To start, you'll have a D major chord. Then I just use all three of my fingers here, and it helps if you turn your wrist. Then I go to a B minor chord. Now this is a bar chord, which means that you're stacking your fingers across all the strings, and I find it helpful to just stack my index and my middle finger here. Then you have an F sharp minor chord. And then you have a G sus2 and a G. Now it's worth noting that the only difference between a G sus2 and a G is whether or not you have this middle finger on the A string. So for the first chord progression, you just have D to B minor, to F sharp minor, to G sus2, and then the second time round it's pretty similar, but you have D to B minor, to F sharp minor, and then you end with a G. The next subsection in Eliza and Hamilton's bit is when Eliza is singing I Knew You Fight to Be Alive Right Now. So first I'll go over the chords that you need here. You need a B minor, and then you go to a D, and then you go to a G, and then you end with an A. Now I'm going to go over the picking pattern that I use for this section. Now I'll be demoing on open strings, so I won't be doing anything with my left hand, and I'll hold the ukulele up so you can see what I'm doing. And when you're practicing, again, I would suggest just playing on open strings without doing anything with your left hand. So first I'll go over the finger string assignment, and this is what I use for a lot of songs too. I use my thumb for the G and C strings, index finger for the E string, and then middle finger for the A string. Now I'm going to go over the specific picking pattern that I use for this part of the song, and I'll play one of these patterns for each of the chords. So holding the ukulele up again, we'll first start by just strumming all the strings, and then we essentially will just alternate between plucking the G string with your thumb and then plucking all of the other strings. So to pluck the C, E, and A strings, I'll make a sort of a grabbing motion, and that will allow all three of them to ring out at the same time. So I'll start with strumming all the strings, and then plucking the G string, all the other strings, and then you repeat that a few times. So starting from the top, on tempo, it would sound something like this. So wrapping up this section, I would suggest practicing the picking pattern and the chord progression separately before putting them together. For instance, you can just try the picking pattern on open strings by itself. And then you can try playing through the chord progression B minor, D, G, and A before putting the two of them together. Finally, I'll go over the last bit of Eliza and Hamilton's section. This is when Hamilton sings, "Will you relish being a poor man's wife?" and till Eliza sings, "Look around, look around." This is pretty straightforward. We just have three chords here. The first one is an E minor, and then you have an F sharp minor, and then you have a G sus2. And for this section, I'm just playing all single strums. Now I'm gonna go over the section of the song where just Eliza is singing. A lot of the chords in this section are the same as in the previous section. However, the ordering of the chords is a little bit different from verse to verse, so I would suggest just looking at the chord chart to figure out the exact order. I'll be focusing more on the picking pattern and the strum pattern that we use here. I'll go over the picking pattern that I use to play most of Eliza's section. So I'll be demoing on open strings, and I'll hold the ukulele up so you can see what I'm doing. So recall that the finger string assignment is your thumb takes care of the G and C strings, index finger on E, middle finger on A. So the picking pattern that I use here is that I'll start by strumming all the strings, and then I'll alternate between plucking the C string with my thumb, and then plucking the E and A strings with my index and middle fingers, so I'll pluck them at the same time. And the way to do that is you'll have a grabbing motion that sort of looks like that. And so from the top, it'll sound something like this. And I'll play one of that for each of the chords. One note on the picking pattern is that I'll do something a little bit different on the split measures, such as when Eliza sings, "To stay alive, that would be enough." And so what I'm doing here, and I'll hold up the ukulele so you can see, is that I'll start with the same picking pattern as before on the G major chord. However, after that point, I'll switch to the G sus2 chord, and you can just lift up your middle finger. And then I'll grab the C, E, and A strings at the same time using the grabbing motion from before. So again, it'll sound something like G, G sus2. To wrap up that section, I would suggest just practicing the picking pattern by itself. You can also practice the split measure, switching between G and G sus2 and doing something different there. And then also learning the chord progression by itself. And again, I would suggest just looking at the chord chart to see what the order is there. Finally, I'll go over the very end of the song. This is from when Eliza sings "Where You Decide to Stay" all the way to the ending riff. Now I'm gonna go over the strum pattern that I use, and I switch to the strum pattern when I sing the word stay. The reason why I do this is if you listen to the original, at that part in the song it gets a little bit louder, a little bit faster, more dynamic, more exciting. So the strum pattern that I use is largely just up strums, and so counting out it sounds something like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I'm just going to play through the last little bit of the song slowly so you can get a sense of how the strum pattern sounds like with the chords. So again, I would suggest just practicing the strum pattern: down, up, 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 down, up, 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 and the chords independently. Now the chords that you'll need are B minor, G major 7, and then D. So I'll start from "Where You Decide to Stay," and then I'll go to the strum pattern on the word stay. So we have "Where you decide to stay, and I could be enough, and we could be enough, that would be enough." And then it goes into the little riff. One note there is that there is a split measure between B minor and G major 7. So instead of doing the full down, up, up, up strum pattern, in the middle of that, I'll switch to a G major 7. And so it'll just be 2 downs on B minor and and 2 downs on G major 7. So in context, starting from where you decide to stay, and the first bit of that will sound like down, up, 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 down, up, 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 down, up, 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 down, 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 down. Now I'm going to go over the riff at the very end of the song. Now there's 2 pieces of this. One of them is the left hand, which is in charge of playing the melody, and then there's the right hand, which is in charge of picking the notes fast enough. So the picking technique that I use here, just holding this up, is that I'll just use my thumb and index, and I'll sort of just alternate between them. So it's like thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index. And so I would suggest just practicing that motion, maybe on a few different strings, so you can get used to it. Now I'm going to go over what's going on with the left hand. So the riff starts immediately after you play the D major chord. So your left hand will be primarily just holding the D major chord shape, but also making some adjustments to play the note in the riff. So to start, after you play the D major chord, your pinky will stretch to the 5th fret of the A string, pluck those 4 notes, your pinky lifts up, you can pluck those 4 notes on the A string, open string, and then go to the E string, pluck those 4 notes, lift up your ring finger, and then you're already holding these notes. So repeating that from the top, we have you strum, stretch, lift, E string, lift. So I would suggest just practicing that slowly. It's a little bit tricky to be able to do that fast and on tempo. I hope this tutorial helped you learn That Would Be Enough from Hamilton. If you're looking for a play-along video, you can check out the other video that I made. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I put out a new video every Sunday. You can also hit the little bell icon, and that way you'll get notified every time I put out a new video. Thank you for watching.